Hello, everyone. Welcome to LGBA US's weekly news roundup. We got a lot to cover, so let's jump in. All right, so the state of Tennessee and 17 other states are suing the EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, for unlawfully extending Title VII protections to include gender identity. So, what Title VII is, for anybody who doesn't know, we'll have links in the description, by the way, to all these things. Title VII prohibits employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. So, the EEOC decided to go ahead and extend that out to include gender identity. And they're using the Bostock case, which was a 2020 case that basically had a gentleman who identified as trans sued his employer because the employer, I think it had to do more with the way he was dressing or something. Yeah, so the ruling was really narrow, right? But the EEOC is basically taken Bostock and been like, oh, okay, that means we're going to cover all the gender stuff in law. Now, Tennessee and the 17 other states are suing EEOC because they claim that that this does not actually address the issues of pronoun use and bathroom use. And EEOC is basically saying, yes, you have to allow people to use the bathroom that they identify with, not the sex they are, which means that is going to be a problem when it comes to women's bathrooms, right? And also it is going to mandate proper pronoun use. And so Tennessee and these 17 other states are like, this is going to be a problem. So they're suing the EEOC over those changes. They also claim, and I think rightfully so, that Bostock was so narrow that it doesn't really cover this and that the EEOC is extending themselves past what they should be doing by law. Next story is a gay couple in New York City is suing the city over denial of IVF benefits, so in vitro fertilization. The couple have been trying to obtain IVF coverage for several years. It's a gay man couple. The city said no, and the reason the city said no is because they don't consider they give the IVF to people who are infertile, and you have to show proof of being infertile, and they don't consider gay men infertile. So the if this case goes through and these guys win, the outcome could be that for law purposes to get this covered by insurance, gay men are going to be considered infertile. Independent Women's Forum announced that Prisha Mosley has won a legal victory in her lawsuit against gender affirming medical professionals. It's the first of its kind from a detransitioner to be considered viable in the court and allowed to continue on. Prisha is suing eight folks. There's 8 defendants in her lawsuit. Notably, is a plastic surgeon, a physician, and 2 licensed counselors. Prisha is also suing for fraud, negligence, because she claims that the healthcare professionals advised her towards medicalization despite knowing that she had mental health issues and trauma in her past. Prisha, we wish you luck in your search for justice. Ariane, what do you got for us?
Thank you, Carol. So first, we have a couple of news stories involving parental rights and school notification policies for LGB and TQ plus youth. First, we turn to the U.S. Supreme Court, which on May 20th declined to hear an appeal from 3 parents who are suing the county of Montgomery, Maryland, over its so-called parental preclusion policy. This policy allows teachers to withhold information about their students' gender identities from their students' parents. The background of this case goes back to 2020, where the 3 parents sued Montgomery County by arguing that the parental preclusion policy violated their 14th Amendment rights to due process to direct the care of their children. A district court judge dismissed the case in 2022, and in August of 2023, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in a 2-to-1 verdict that the plaintiffs lacked the legal standing to pursue their claims, pointing out that they were not injured by Montgomery County's policy, but merely disagreed with it. The ruling stated, quote, absent an injury that creates standing, federal courts lack the power to address the parents' objections to the guidelines. That does not mean their objections are invalid. In fact, they may be quite persuasive. But by failing to allege any injury to themselves, the parents' opposition to the parental preclusion policy reflects a policy disagreement, and policy disagreements should be addressed to elected policymakers at the ballot box, not to unelected judges in the courthouse. So we remand the district court to dismiss the case for lack of standing. End quote. The Supreme Court, by refusing to hear this case, allows that Fourth Circuit of Appeals Court ruling to stand. Next, we turn to California, where the legislative LGBTQ caucus, including Assemblyman Chris Ward and Senator Susan Eggman, announced the introduction of AB 1955, called the Support Academic Futures and Educators for Today's Youth Act, aka the SAFETY Act. The SAFETY Act does three things. First, it affirms existing law banning school employees or contractors from being required to disclose information about a student's gender identity, sexual orientation, or gender expression unless the student has offered consent and/or their safety is at risk. Second, the bill offers resources for families to offer affirmation of LGBTQ plus, quote unquote, family members without school or government interference. Third, it would protect teachers who conceal information about their students' gender identity, sexual orientation, or gender expression from their parents. Critics of the SAFE Act include Our Duty co-leader and ROGD parent advocate Aaron Friday, who is encouraging Californians to contact legislators to voice opposition to the bill. Furthermore, on May 21st, South Carolina's Governor Henry McMaster signed HB 4624 into law. This law bans gender reassignment procedures for minors while also prohibiting state funds from being used to cover gender reassignment procedures for people of all ages. Furthermore, due to a last-minute change in the bill in the state Senate, the bill also requires school principals and vice principals to disclose to parents any students' change in their gender identities or preferred pronouns. Now, moving on to a different topic, GLAAD released its 2024 Social Media Safety Index. This document complains, amongst other things, about the proliferation of anti-gender ideology content online. Page 23 of the document states, quote, "Another prominent LGBTQ trope includes the use of anti-trans buzzwords like gender ideology and transgenderism to claim that LGBTQ plus community and its allies aim to indoctrinate or brainwash kids into identifying as transgender. By comparing one's gender identity to a political ideology, anti-LGBTQ influencers are attempting to skirt content moderation policies and counter critics by claiming they are targeting a belief system rather than a specific group of people." Unquote. GLAAD's document goes on to criticize social media content warning people of the hazards of medical gender transition and even tries to link such critics to violence against gender clinics. The document also encourages social media platforms to crack down on quote unquote targeted dead naming or misgendering of other users. So with that, Carol, what do you think about this new GLAAD guidelines?
Oh boy, we got them mad. They're mad. They don't like us talking. I feel that stuff is personally like if what they so the document is for them to basically they're trying to encourage someone to do this. Like, what is the purpose of this document?
So it's directed towards social media companies.
Okay.
And it's basically giving what they think are like guidelines for what they should be doing or what they should be doing more. And it also assigns grades, I think, to various um this is hilarious. So I'm just looking at it right now. They give grades to all the social media platforms.
Okay.
TikTok, D plus, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter are all Fs.
F's. I'm surprised.
Well, if and this is the scary thing, if they think those are all bad, imagine what things would be like if they actually got their way. And these were
No,
A's.
okay, so this document is encouraging um, social media platforms, right?
Mhm.
So let's take YouTube for example. YouTube already, I think, is can be pretty strict about what you say about trans stuff versus not. And I could see if this was implemented, I wouldn't have a channel. We wouldn't be on YouTube. Like this troubles me because this is very much curtailing freedom of speech. Whether people like it or not, a lot of our speech is online now.
Uh-huh,
And
exactly.
you
Because
know, and also just the freedom of thought and the freedom to just talk about stuff. And yeah, I found it very interesting that they mentioned that people calling it gender ideology. Try that we call it that to skirt something. Well, that's not the reason. Like for me personally, that's not the reason I call it that. That's because that's what I believe is happening. Like it is a belief system.
Mhm. That
And
to
also
me
because I don't like to pick on people, like individual people, right? It's about the belief system.
yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I thought really struck me when I was looking at this report. It was actually something they profiled on, like, the main website announcement of the release of this report, that they would actually try to try to frame even objection to a belief system as a hateful content. And I'm just looking at their section for YouTube. Um, YouTube earns a score of 58, which is an F. It sounds like they're complaining that they think that misgendering, targeted misgendering, and dead naming is not they're not adequately protecting that. The policy should also protect public figures, according to them. So I guess that means like if if you want to talk about like Ellen Elliott Page, like if you say Ellen Page,
Oh.
maybe that they want that sort of thing censored, which I think is just going to make things horribly confusing.
Yeah,
But
I mean, can you think of any other situation where we want to pass these kind of it's not a law, but we want to implement these kind of standards in society about not ridiculing someone who's famous or something like
yeah,
ridiculing. They think it's ridiculing, but like just saying something someone does a particular group doesn't like about that person.
yeah, and it's not even necessarily mean-spirited or hateful to just talk about how someone actually identified in the past or what name they went by. I mean, that's just all you make a career with a particular image and then you change it. You can't retroactively change the past. That's a very worrying precedent, I think.
Well,
And
for me, I feel like it just goes down to the truth, right?
yeah.
Don't stop people from telling the truth, and that is just the way it is. These are facts.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I'm looking at the some other things they were complaining about. Their other key recommendations: prevent advertisers from wrongfully excluding LGBTQ users from seeing ads. The company should disclose that it does not permit advertisers to exclude users from seeing ads based on their disclosed or inferred sexual orientation and or gender identity. I'm trying to figure out what I'm actually not aware of this controversy.
Yeah, I have no idea what that even means. Like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, and it's interesting too because I mean we've been talking before about how like the Trevor Project. They are constantly slapping YouTube is constantly slapping these Trevor Project conversion therapy informational warnings to all any content that uses these buzzwords about like, conversion therapy or gay or trans or anything, even if it's content that would completely ideologically oppose the Trevor Project. So it's very, how I guess I'm not sure what sort of standard they're using for when is it okay to actually target advertising according to LGBTQ plus identities. It's very weird. So I don't
Also,
know.
also, this goes to the problem of, are we saying the T is more important than the LGBT? Because there's a lot of lesbians that don't agree and are saying, trans ideology is harmful. There's gay men who are saying it. There's even transsexuals who are against some aspects of the ideology. So like what, this, and to me this really proves that it is a political ideology or an ideology, right? Because
Exactly.
it's not it's they're trying to make it about people, but it's obvious it's not, because not everybody agrees
Hmm.
within this magic LGBTQ community.
And that actually segues nicely to their third key recommendation for YouTube, which is to show greater commitment to addressing wrongful demonetization and removal of LGBTQ creators and their content.
Good. Are they going to do that with mine? Because mine can't be monetized.
Yeah, it's like they it's clear that they're complaining about LGBTQ content that GLAAD agrees with. They don't want that content taken down, but they have no problem demonetizing or taking down content from LGBTQ plus whatever people who disagree with them.
Yeah, it's so ludicrous. I hope it goes nowhere. I really do. If it does go somewhere, that's just going to make it worse.
Yeah.
Oh, YouTube already is challenging, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At least it's not TikTok. TikTok is a D plus.
well, yeah, that makes sense though, because TikTok is much more stringent. They will take stuff down fast. At least they did, if you like, 2 years ago when I was on there briefly. That place
Uh-huh.
is a hell site, so I didn't stay there. I
Yeah.
think I'm too old for it.
Yeah. So overall, I think they give 12 key recommendations on their scorecard and they sum up a total and, you know, say which social media company gets what score. Plus, they have all the stuff that I've mentioned before about, complaining about gender ideology, just the term gender ideology, and that stuff about even complaining about medical transition or what they call gender affirming care. It would be horrifying if they
Jeez.
felt like you had to take down content that simply warned people about the hazards of,
That's exactly what they want.
yeah.
That's crazy. That is some next level crazy.
Exactly.
Well,
And the fact that
thanks for fighting that story. I hadn't heard about it yet.
I yeah, it was, I think yesterday that I noticed it was retweeted from a GLAAD adjacent account, I think, actually. So yeah,
Well, is that all for the news today or for this week? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more, but that's what we tracked down.
I think that's it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you everybody for joining us. We will be back again next week with some more news, and have a good evening, morning, day,